What if everything you've ever been taught about giving up is wrong? That's a shocking thought, isn't it? Because for most of our lives, we've been fed the same script: push through, never stop, winners never quit. From childhood classrooms to the motivational quotes plastered all over the internet, the message is loud and clear: quitting is weakness, perseverance is glory. But what if that script is incomplete? What if clinging too tightly to it has kept you stuck, exhausted, even broken at times? Take a breath. This is not another video that's going to guilt you for being tired. This isn't one of those lectures telling you to hustle harder, sacrifice more, or suffer now so you can shine later. No. This space, behind the smile, is a safe haven, a place where your hidden struggles are respected, where your growth, no matter how small, is celebrated. And if you've ever felt like you're drowning behind a brave face, you are not alone here. I want you to stay with me for a moment, because today we're going to flip the script. Today we're going to talk about how sometimes the most powerful, life-changing decision you can make is not to persist, but to pivot. So let me ask you again, and let this question sink deep, because maybe it's the very question your soul has been waiting for. What if giving up isn't failure? What if giving up is growth in disguise? Think about the weight those words carry. Imagine if the shame of quitting didn't exist. Imagine if walking away wasn't a scarlet letter, but a badge of wisdom. How many choices in your past would suddenly look different? How many nights would you have slept easier if you had believed that? You see, we often look at persistence like it's the highest virtue. And don't get me wrong, persistence has power. It teaches discipline, it pushes us through fear, it helps us reach goals we thought were impossible. But when persistence becomes blind, when it becomes clinging for the sake of clinging, it stops being a strength. It becomes a prison. Here's the part that might shake you. What if strategic quitting is not defeat at all, but a strategy for success? I know that sounds upside down. Society demonizes quitting. It paints retreat as cowardice. Yet history, psychology, and even our own lived experiences tell a different story. Over and over again, the people we admire most, the entrepreneurs, the artists, the leaders, even the everyday survivors, they didn't get where they are by blindly pushing forever. Many of them arrived at their breakthroughs by knowing when to stop, when to shift, when to let go. Think about it. A soldier who knows when to retreat and regroup is not a coward, they're a strategist. A person who leaves a toxic job isn't a failure. They're protecting their health and opening space for something better. A dream that no longer lights your soul on fire isn't worth clinging to just because you invested years into it. We're taught to see quitting as giving up. But in truth, strategic quitting is intelligent disengagement. It's refusing to sink endless time, energy, and spirit into something that no longer deserves it. Let me be real with you. I used to believe quitting was always weakness. I thought if I walked away from something, it meant I wasn't strong enough, smart enough, or worthy enough. So I stayed in things longer than I should have. Projects, commitments, even relationships. But here's what I eventually learned. Sometimes persistence isn't courage, it's fear. Fear of being judged, fear of wasting what we've already put in, fear of the unknown. And fear is not the foundation of growth. The moment I allowed myself to see quitting differently, everything shifted. I realized walking away doesn't mean you failed. It means you made a conscious choice to stop giving energy to something that no longer serves you. And in that space, that gap you create by letting go, new possibilities can finally breathe. If you're watching this right now and your heart is racing because you've been carrying the weight of, "I can't quit, I'll look weak," this is your safe place. You're not weak, you're human. And this is a community where humanity is enough. Behind the smile isn't about masks or pretending to be okay. It's about honesty, courage, and reminding each other that no progress is too small to celebrate. Whether it's deciding to pause a project, step back from a draining friendship, or even just admitting you're tired, That counts. That matters. And here, you don't have to hide it. If you feel like sharing, you can drop your thoughts in the comments. And if you'd rather keep it private, send it to the email in my bio. We'll keep your story anonymous, and who knows, maybe your experience will encourage someone else who's feeling the same way. Now, before you scroll away, I want to promise you something. By the end of this video, you're not just going to feel lighter, you're going to have a new lens for looking at your struggles. You'll see that giving up is not a dirty word. You'll leave with practical tools to know when it's time to hold on and when it's time to let go. And there's something else. I'm going to share with you a simple checklist, a 1-minute test you can use anytime you feel torn between pushing forward and walking away. It's powerful, and it might just save you years of unnecessary struggle. So stay until the end. For now, I just want you to breathe and release the guilt you've been carrying. Tell yourself, I am not weak for considering a new path. I am wise enough to ask if this path is right for me. If you want to join me in that affirmation, type it in the comments. You'd be surprised how many people might echo those same words. That's the beauty of this community. You'll see proof that you're not walking this road alone. So here's the journey we're about to take together in this video. We'll start by exposing the myth that quitting always equals failure and how that belief has trapped so many of us. Then, we'll explore real-life moments where quitting isn't weakness, but strategy. We'll uncover the unseen benefits of letting go, benefits you may never have considered. We'll redefine failure itself, showing how retreat can actually lead to growth. And finally, we'll equip you with the mindset and practical steps for what I call intelligent disengagement. By the time we finish, you'll see quitting through a completely different lens. So let's start this journey together. But before we dive into the first section, I want you to remember something. You are safe here. No growth is small, no progress is small, no struggle is small. This is Behind the Smile. Welcome home.
We've all heard it. That one sentence that gets repeated so often it becomes etched into our brains. Winners never quit, and quitters never win. It's on posters, in motivational speeches, in classrooms, and in conversations with well-meaning family members. From the time we were little, we were taught that persistence is everything, that pushing through no matter what is the only way to succeed. But here's the truth no one told us. Sometimes that belief doesn't help us grow. Sometimes it traps us. Think about your earliest memories of being told not to quit. Maybe it was in school, when you struggled with a subject and someone said, "Don't give up. Just keep trying." Or maybe it was on a sports team where the coach shouted, "Push harder, don't you dare quit now." The intention behind those words wasn't bad. Persistence can be powerful. It builds resilience, discipline, and grit. But the problem is when that message becomes absolute. When never quit is seen as the golden rule in every situation, even the ones that are harming us. And over time, that conditioning runs deep, so deep that when we even think about quitting something, shame rises up in us instantly. We start labeling ourselves as failures before we've even spoken the thought out loud. Have you ever been in a situation where every part of you wanted to stop, but you kept going only because you were afraid of what people would think if you quit? Maybe you stayed in a job that drained you. You hated waking up in the morning, dreaded each workday, and felt your confidence slipping away. Yet you stayed. Because quitting would make you look unreliable. Because quitting would make people whisper, they couldn't handle it. Or maybe it was a relationship. You knew deep down it wasn't healthy, but you convinced yourself to keep going. After all, what would people say if you walked away? Would they call you weak? Would they say you gave up too soon? That's the weight of the never quit myth. It doesn't just pressure us to keep going, it traps us in cycles of shame. There's a difference between persistence that grows you and persistence that destroys you. Persistence grows you when it pushes you to learn a skill you care about, when it helps you overcome temporary fear, when it builds endurance for something meaningful. But persistence destroys you when it forces you to stay in toxic environments, when it drains your health, when it silences your inner truth just to maintain an image. Blind persistence is not strength. It's a prison. Let me give you an example. I once heard about a man who had been studying a major in university that he hated. Every exam felt like torment. Every class drained him. But he kept telling himself, I can't quit now. I've already put in 3 years. If I stop, it'll all be wasted. That's the trap. He wasn't staying because he loved the field. He wasn't staying because it was helping him grow. He was staying because quitting felt like failure. This is where something called the sunk cost fallacy sneaks in. It's a fancy term, but the idea is simple. We convince ourselves that we must continue something just because we've already invested time, money, or energy into it. But here's the painful truth. The past investment is gone. No matter what you do, you can't get it back. The only thing you can control is what you do next. So, if you're stuck in something that no longer serves you, staying in it just because you've come this far isn't loyalty, it's self-sabotage. Most of us don't even realize how deeply this myth shapes us. Just hearing the word quit makes our stomachs twist. The gut reaction is automatic: weakness, failure, disappointment. But here's the thing, that reaction is cultural conditioning, not universal truth. Imagine a soldier on a battlefield who recognizes that pressing forward will cost unnecessary lives. When they retreat to regroup, is that weakness or is it wisdom? Imagine an entrepreneur who realizes their product idea isn't working. They shut it down, not because they're lazy, but because they see a better opportunity. Is that defeat or is it strategy? The act of quitting in itself is neutral. What matters is the reason behind it. Here's the reframe I want you to carry from this moment on. Quitting doesn't always mean weakness. Sometimes, quitting is the ultimate act of strength. Because it takes courage to admit something isn't working. It takes self-respect to walk away from environments that erode you. And it takes vision to free yourself for a new beginning. That's not failure. That's wisdom. Let me share a few anonymous composites from real-life stories people have sent in to spaces like this one. There was a young woman who worked in a company where her boss constantly insulted her. Every day was a battle with anxiety. She stayed for years because she was afraid of being seen as weak if she quit. When she finally left, she cried for weeks, not from regret, but from relief. For the first time in years, she could breathe. Another person poured their savings into a business idea. It struggled for years. Everyone around them kept saying, "Don't give up, just keep pushing." But deep down, they knew it wasn't working. When they finally let it go, they discovered a different path that used the skills they had built, and that venture thrived. In both cases, quitting wasn't an ending, it was a beginning. I want to ask you something, and you don't have to answer out loud if it feels too personal. What's one situation you stayed in longer than you should have just because you were afraid of being labeled a quitter? If you feel safe, drop it in the comments. Even one word, even something small. And if you'd rather keep it private, you can always share your story through the email in my bio. We'll keep it anonymous because your dignity matters here. The important part is simply acknowledging it, even to yourself, because once you name it, you begin to free yourself from it. So let's pause and breathe in what we've uncovered here. Society told us quitting always equals failure. That belief can trap us in jobs, relationships, or projects that harm us. Our gut reaction to quitting isn't truth, it's conditioning. And sometimes the bravest thing we can do is walk away. As we move into the next section, we're going to take this further. We'll explore how quitting isn't just relief. It can actually be a strategy, a smart, intentional move that opens doors you never thought possible. But for now, I want you to remember this. No growth is small. No progress is small. No struggle is small. Here at Behind the Smile, you are safe, you are seen, and you are never less worthy for choosing peace over persistence.
Let's take the myth we explored in the last section, the belief that quitting always equals failure, and turn it completely upside down. Because the truth is this: quitting, when done intentionally, isn't just relief, it's strategy. Now, I know that sounds strange. We've all been programmed to think persistence is heroic and quitting is shameful. But when you really look at the stories of people who grew, succeeded, or even simply survived with dignity intact, a pattern begins to emerge. They didn't get there by stubbornly pushing forever. They got there by knowing when to stop. And today, I want to help you see quitting not as a collapse, but as a pivot, a redirection that carries you closer to where you're meant to be. The first shift we need to make is understanding that there's a huge difference between giving up on yourself and giving up on a specific strategy. When you give up on yourself, you're saying, "I'll never be enough. Nothing I do will work. I don't matter." That's despair. And that's not what we're talking about here. But when you give up on a strategy, a job, a relationship, a project, a degree, a side hustle, you're not saying, "I'm worthless." You're saying, "This particular path isn't working, and I value myself enough to stop forcing it." That's not weakness. That's self-respect. That's intelligence. Let's talk about one of the sneakiest reasons people refuse to quit: the sunk cost fallacy. Here's how it works. Imagine you're watching a movie that's boring you to death. You've already spent an hour on it. Do you keep watching, telling yourself, "I can't stop now, I've already wasted so much time"? That's sunk cost thinking. The time is already gone. Sticking around just makes you lose more. Now, expand that to bigger things in life. Years spent in a degree that drains you. Money poured into a business idea that isn't working. Energy given to a relationship that keeps taking and never giving. We stay not because it's good for us, but because we can't bear to waste what we've already invested. But the truth? That investment is already gone. What matters is not the past, it's whether the future will be better if you keep going. Think of J.K. Rowling before Harry Potter. She quit jobs that weren't working for her. Elon Musk has pivoted companies multiple times before hitting the right formula. Oprah was fired from her first TV job, but instead of clinging to it out of fear, she redirected into a path that fit her voice. But this doesn't just happen with famous names. Everyday people are practicing strategic quitting, often quietly, without applause. A nurse who realized the hospital system was crushing her mental health. So she left bedside nursing and started teaching younger nurses instead. She still served her passion, but chose a healthier strategy. A man who spent years building a business he hated. Everyone around him praised his grind, but inside, he was miserable. When he finally walked away, he found joy in freelance work that gave him time for his kids. A young woman who left an engagement even though she'd already spent years planning a future. She was terrified of looking like she failed at love. But later, she found peace in the space she created, and she discovered a version of herself she never knew existed. In each case, quitting wasn't an ending, it was a doorway. I want you to try something with me right now. Close your eyes for a moment, unless you're driving or walking, of course, and ask yourself these questions. If this were day one, would I still choose this path? Am I staying because it gives me joy and growth, Or am I afraid of how quitting will look? Do I see even small signs of progress, or is it draining me with no return? These questions cut right to the heart of persistence versus pivoting. If your honest answers point to fear, image, or guilt as the only reasons you're staying, that's a signal. A signal that it might not be failure to quit. It might be wisdom. Let's be real. Quitting, even strategically, doesn't feel easy. There's grief involved. You're not just letting go of a job, a dream, or a relationship. You're letting go of the story you told yourself about how it was supposed to end. And that's okay. It's okay to cry. It's okay to feel lost for a while. But underneath that grief, something else starts to grow. Relief. Relief that you're no longer forcing yourself to fit into something that doesn't fit you. Relief that you don't have to carry the burden of pretending. Relief that your energy, your heart, and your time are now free to flow somewhere new. And that relief isn't weakness. That relief is data. It's your body telling you, thank you for finally letting me breathe. I want you to do a little check-in with yourself right now. Where are you in this spectrum? Are you persisting in something that still grows you? Or are you persisting only because you're afraid of what quitting means? If you feel safe, I invite you to share it in the comments with just one word: persist or pivot. That's it, just one word. And you might be surprised by how many others echo your word back to you. This is the beauty of this community. You're not alone in the choice you're facing. Here's what I want you to hold on to. Pivoting is not running away. Pivoting is choosing to redirect your energy towards something that honors your life more fully. Imagine a river. When the river meets a rock, it doesn't crash endlessly against it, insisting that persistence will eventually break it. No. The river flows around the rock. It pivots. It keeps moving forward, just in a new direction. That's the power of quitting strategically. You're not stopping your life's flow. You're just finding a healthier course. So here's what we've discovered in this section. Quitting is not the same as giving up on yourself. The sunk cost fallacy keeps us trapped, pouring good energy into bad investments. Strategic quitting has been the secret behind both everyday survival and extraordinary success. Relief after quitting isn't shame. It's a signal that you've made the right move. As we move into the next section, we'll look at the hidden benefits of letting go. The ways that quitting doesn't just release you from pain, but actively frees up energy, creativity, and clarity for new opportunities you might never have imagined. But for now, remember this: persistence and quitting are not enemies. They're tools, and wisdom is knowing which one to use.
When you finally let go of something that no longer serves you, the first feeling that often comes is grief, and that's natural. But right after the grief, when the dust begins to settle, something else appears: relief, lightness, a freedom you may not have felt in years. This is the unseen gift of letting go. We often spend so much time fearing what we'll lose if we quit, that we forget to notice what we'll gain when we stop forcing ourselves to carry something heavy. Let's explore these hidden benefits together, because once you see them clearly, you'll realize quitting isn't just an ending, it's also a beginning. Think about how much energy you've poured into something that drains you. Every morning you wake up exhausted before the day even begins. Every night you go to bed replaying the same frustrations. Now imagine what happens when you step away from that. Suddenly, the energy that was leaking out of you has nowhere else to go but back into your life. That energy can be redirected into rest, into healing, into exploring new opportunities, into relationships that nurture you instead of drain you. When you let go, your energy doesn't vanish. It comes home. Holding on to the wrong thing creates noise in the mind. It's like carrying around a buzzing radio you can't switch off. You're always distracted, always second-guessing, always wondering if today will finally be different. Letting go silences that noise. And in the quiet, clarity comes. Suddenly you can think straight again. You can see options you couldn't see before. You can hear your own voice without it being drowned out by fear, guilt, or shame. Clarity is powerful because clarity points the way forward. One of the most surprising benefits of quitting is the emotional release it brings. Picture someone finally leaving a toxic relationship. At first, they feel heartbreak, even guilt. But then, slowly, a sense of peace washes over them. The constant anxiety they lived with begins to fade. The tightness in their chest loosens. They start laughing again at small things. That's healing. Healing that couldn't begin while they were still holding on. Letting go is often the first step toward emotional repair. When you quit one path, you create space for something new. And in that space, discoveries often happen. You might uncover strengths you didn't know you had, interests you never explored, friendships you never nurtured. Think of the student who left a course they hated only to stumble into a class that awakened a hidden talent, or the professional who quit a draining job and discovered a passion for creating art, teaching, or building something entirely new. Letting go doesn't shrink your world, it expands it. Perhaps the most powerful unseen benefit is this. When you walk away from something harmful, you are quietly telling yourself, "I deserve better." That message builds self-respect. It's not easy to admit when something isn't working. It takes courage to draw a line and say, "Enough." Each time you do it, you strengthen the belief that your peace, your health, and your happiness matter. And once you carry that belief, it changes the way you show up in every part of your life. Let me share a few anonymous glimpses of how these benefits show up in real people's lives. There was a man who spent years at a company that drained him. The money was good, but the constant stress left him sick and hollow. When he finally quit, people told him he was crazy. But a few months later, he said, "I didn't realize how tired I was until I rested. For the first time in years, I feel alive." A young woman walked away from a relationship everyone else thought looked perfect. On the outside, they were the golden couple. On the inside, she was shrinking. When she finally let go, she cried for weeks, but then she rediscovered her laughter. She said, "I found myself again." These are the kinds of stories we don't always hear because society only praises the ones who push through. But there are just as many victories in those who choose to walk away. I want you to pause and ask yourself, if I let go of this thing that's draining me, what energy would return to me? What clarity would I gain? What space could open in my life? You don't need to answer out loud if it feels too raw, but if you feel safe, you can share a glimpse in the comments. Even something small like, "I'd gain peace," or "I'd gain time for myself." And if you're not ready to share publicly, you can always send your story privately to the email in my bio. We'll keep it anonymous, because here at Behind the Smile, your voice matters, but your privacy matters too. So why don't we see these benefits more clearly before we quit? Because fear blinds us. Fear tells us that if we let go, we'll lose everything. Fear makes us focus only on the cost of quitting, not the rewards. But here's what I want you to remember. Fear exaggerates the loss and hides the gain. The truth is, when you let go, you don't just lose something, you reclaim something. Sometimes letting go doesn't have to be dramatic. It doesn't always mean quitting your job tomorrow or ending a relationship overnight. Sometimes it's small steps, saying no to one extra commitment, choosing to rest instead of pushing, allowing yourself to admit, even privately, this isn't working. Each small act of letting go builds the muscle of courage, and over time, those small acts add up to big changes. So here's what we've uncovered in this part of our journey. Letting go returns your energy. It clears your mind. It begins emotional healing. It creates space for discovery, and it builds self-respect. These are the unseen gifts that only reveal themselves once you've had the courage to stop forcing what no longer fits. As we move into the next section, we'll take this even further. We'll look at how we can redefine failure itself, not as an end point, but as a stepping stone toward growth. Because once you see quitting as a tool, even so-called failure transforms into wisdom. But before we move forward, I want to leave you with this reminder. No growth is small. No progress is small. No struggle is small. And here at Behind the Smile, you are safe. You are not weak for letting go. You are wise for choosing peace.
When we hear the word failure, most of us shrink inside. It stings. It feels heavy. It's the word that haunted us on school report cards, in work evaluations, and in moments where life didn't go as planned. But here's the truth. Failure isn't what you think it is. Failure is not the enemy. Failure is not the full stop at the end of your story. Failure is simply feedback. It's data. It's one chapter in a bigger book you're still writing. And when you look closely, you realize something incredible. What society labels as failure is often the exact moment that growth begins. Let's start here. Failure doesn't mean you're worthless. It doesn't mean you'll never succeed. It simply means this method, at this time, in this way, didn't work. That's it. Nothing more. When you redefine failure as a data point, you remove the shame. It becomes less about who you are and more about what you've tried. And suddenly, instead of carrying it like a wound, you can use it like a compass. There are countless stories of people who quit something, and in the moment, it looked like failure. But later, it became the foundation of something greater. A student dropped out of a program everyone said was prestigious. At first, people whispered they couldn't handle it. But that same student switched into a field that aligned with their heart and went on to thrive. A business owner closed their store after years of struggling. Friends called it a waste. But that failure gave them the experience and clarity to launch a new venture that finally took off. A person ended an engagement just months before the wedding. Families were disappointed, but years later, that decision was the turning point that allowed them to build a healthier, happier partnership. At first, these looked like defeats, but in truth, they were pivots, powerful ones. Think about this. On a battlefield, a retreat is not always cowardice. A wise commander retreats to regroup, conserve energy, and find a stronger position. Without that retreat, the army might be lost. Life works the same way. Knowing when to retreat is not weakness, it's wisdom. It takes courage to say, this isn't working, I need to step back. Because it goes against everything society tells us about pride, about appearances, about grinding forever. But the people who dare to retreat, regroup, and redirect are often the ones who eventually win in ways that truly matter. In peace, in purpose, in health, in relationships.
Let's reframe failure together. Instead of saying, "I failed," try saying, "I discovered one way that doesn't work for me. I gained clarity about what I don't want. I'm gathering experience for the next attempt." Each retreat is not the end. It's a step on the staircase. And sometimes the step down is what allows you to climb higher later. I want you to pause and ask yourself, what's one time in your life when you thought you had failed, but looking back, you can see it was actually the start of something new? It could be as simple as a relationship ending that opened the door for better friendships, or a job loss that pushed you into a career you love. If you feel safe, drop it in the comments. Even a few words, and if you'd rather keep it private, whisper it to yourself right now. Recognize it for what it was, not failure, but a hidden doorway. I won't lie, redefining failure isn't just an intellectual exercise, it's emotional too. Because even when you know quitting can be wise, your heart still hurts when something ends. You might feel grief, disappointment, or embarrassment. That's normal. That's human. But here's the thing. Those emotions don't mean you made the wrong choice. They mean you cared. And caring is never wasted. Give yourself permission to feel the emotions of retreat. Then remind yourself, feeling sad about something ending doesn't mean the ending was wrong. Retreat teaches humility. It teaches flexibility. It teaches us to listen to our limits. And more importantly, retreat teaches us resilience. Because when you step back, you learn how to stand up again. Not in the same place, but in a better place. Think about a tree in a storm. The ones that survive aren't the ones that refuse to bend. They're the ones that sway with the wind, then straighten again when it passes. That's resilience. That's retreat. Let me give you some snapshots. Career pivot. A young man studied engineering for 3 years. He hated it. Every test was torture. Everyone told him, "Don't quit now, you're almost done." But he listened to his gut, left, and started studying design. That retreat didn't ruin his future. It saved it. Relationship reset. A woman stayed in a long-term relationship because she was afraid of being seen as a failure at love. Finally, she stepped away. That retreat hurt deeply, but later she said, "That's the moment I began to heal. That's when I remembered who I was." Business closure. A man poured all his savings into a cafe that barely survived. Eventually, he closed it. People whispered, he failed. But that closure freed him to start a small catering company that succeeded. He later said, "The cafe taught me everything I needed. Closing it was the smartest thing I did." These aren't failures, they're lessons. When you redefine failure, you see it for what it is, a teacher. Failure says, "Try another way." Failure says, "Not here, not now." Failure says, "Learn this first." And when you listen, you grow. That's why retreat is not an ending. It's a recalibration. It's your life guiding you toward the places where your energy, time, and heart will bear fruit. So here's what we've uncovered together. Failure is not the enemy. It's data. It's feedback. Quitting often looks like failure in the moment, but later reveals itself as growth. Retreat is not cowardice. It's strategy, courage, and resilience. And the emotions of retreat don't mean you made a mistake. They mean you cared deeply. As we move into the final section, we'll take this all one step further. We'll talk about how to do it, how to evaluate when persistence serves you and when intelligent disengagement is the wiser path. And I'll give you practical steps, a framework you can use to know when it's time to hold on and when it's time to let go. But before we get there, I want you to remember this. No growth is small. No progress is small. No struggle is small. And hear it behind the smile. You are safe, you are seen, and you are never defined by what ended. Only by how you keep choosing peace, courage, and growth.
We've come a long way together. We started by breaking down the myth that quitting is always failure. We saw how persistence, when blind, can trap us. We uncovered the unseen benefits of letting go. And we redefined failure itself, not as the end of the road, but as feedback. Now we arrive at the final step. How to embrace what I call intelligent disengagement. This is where wisdom meets action. Because it's one thing to understand quitting can be powerful. It's another to know when to quit, how to quit, and how to move forward without guilt. Intelligent disengagement defined. So, what is intelligent disengagement? It's not about giving up in despair. It's not about walking away from everything the moment it gets hard. Intelligent disengagement is about stepping back with clarity, with courage, and with intention. It's the practice of evaluating a situation and saying, this no longer serves my growth, my health, or my values, and I am strong enough to choose peace over persistence. To make this practical, I want to share a simple framework. Think of it as your personal checklist when you're torn between holding on and letting go. Name the pain. Ask yourself honestly, where is the real source of my struggle? Is it the workload, the environment, the values clash, or simply a lack of joy? Naming it clearly is the first step. Reality check. Imagine this was day one again. Knowing what you know now, would you still choose this path? If the answer is a clear no, that's powerful data. Boundaries test. Is this situation violating your non-negotiables, your health, your respect, your dignity, your values? If yes, persistence is no longer noble, it's harmful. Exit plan. Quitting doesn't always mean walking away tomorrow. It can mean scaling down, pausing, or setting a future date to transition. Intelligent disengagement is about creating a safe, thoughtful exit strategy. Support net. Who can you talk to? Who can hold you accountable? What resources can help you bridge the gap? Disengagement is easier and safer when you don't do it alone. These 5 steps turn quitting from an emotional impulse into a structured, empowering decision. Here's the radical truth. Quitting well is a skill. It's something you can get better at. Just like persistence can be trained through practice and discipline, so can disengagement. Each time you evaluate honestly, set boundaries, and walk away with clarity, you strengthen that muscle. And the more you practice intelligent disengagement, the less guilt you carry. Because you know you're not quitting out of weakness. You're quitting out of wisdom. Let's put this into everyday terms. At work, maybe you've been grinding in a job that makes you sick with dread. Instead of pushing endlessly, intelligent disengagement might look like updating your resume quietly, building connections, and setting a 3-month exit goal. In relationships, if you're in a friendship that only takes and never gives, intelligent disengagement might be reducing contact, creating boundaries, and allowing the relationship to fade. Personal goals. Maybe you started a side project that drains you. Instead of clinging out of pride, intelligent disengagement might mean shelving it for now and revisiting it when your heart is ready. Notice something. Intelligent disengagement doesn't burn everything down overnight. It redirects your energy with intention. Let's be honest, it's scary. Walking away means facing uncertainty. It means risking judgment.
It means grieving the version of the future you imagined. But courage doesn't mean the fear disappears. Courage means you move forward even while the fear whispers. And in this safe space, behind the smile, you never have to walk that path alone. This is a community where your courage is seen, your struggles are honored, and your progress, no matter how small, is celebrated. I want to give you a simple ritual you can use anytime you feel stuck. Take a piece of paper. On one side, write, "What I gain by holding on." List everything honestly. On the other side, write, "What I gain by letting go." Be just as honest. Then read both sides aloud to yourself. Often, clarity comes not from thinking harder, but from seeing the truth laid out in front of you. If you're sitting here right now with tears in your eyes because you know something in your life is draining you, I want you to remember this. You are safe here. You don't have to carry that secret alone. If you want, you can drop a single word in the comments. Ready. Just that one word, and you'll see others echo back. Proof that you are not alone. And if you'd rather share privately, you can always send your story through the email in my bio. We'll keep it anonymous, because your dignity matters. Sometimes, telling your story is the first step in intelligent disengagement. Here's the question I want you to carry with you. What is the true cost of persisting in something that no longer serves me? Because persistence has a price, and if that price is your peace, your health, your self-worth, then the victory isn't worth it. The bravest choice may be to stop, breathe, and redirect. So here's what we've uncovered in this final section. Intelligent disengagement means quitting with clarity, courage, and intention. The 5-step SMART Quit framework helps you decide when and how to let go. Quitting is not weakness, it's a skill you can master. Persistence has a cost, and sometimes peace is worth more than pride. As we close this journey, I want you to hold on to these truths. You are not defined by what you walked away from. You are defined by the courage it took to choose a better path. And always remember, no growth is small. No progress is small. No struggle is small. This is Behind the Smile. You are safe here. If you found comfort in this video, subscribe, share it with someone who needs it, and join our community. And if you're ready to take one step towards peace, type it in the comments. I choose my peace. Because together, we remind each other, quitting isn't the end. It's the beginning of something better.